I was born in Beijing, China, and attended Unspeakables Christian school in Boston area of United States. This is my first visit to China's steep mountain border, which is the furthest southeast Yunnan Guizhou plateau. And even now, it is a place that 99% of Chinese do not know. When I first arrived here, I could feel the backwardness of this land. With all the urban high-rise buildings, air conditioning, and neon that I am used to. It is inhabited by the Miao people, an ancient ethnic minority in China who had been civilized for less than 120 years ago. And 120 years ago, they lived in the same backward, primitive state as the Indian tribes in the highlands and mountains of Utah or Coronado in the Midwest before the westward movement. Before Pollard came to Shimenkan, the Miao people here could not read and write. The only two people in the whole group knew how to calculate within 10, and they recorded things by knotting ropes and curving wood. There is no letters. What is particularly striking is that Pollard, who studied Chinese as British and was later proficient in Miao language, led two Miao Christians to develop himself to research and create the Miao language. The text has Latin letters, as well as strokes inspired by the patterns of local Miao clothing. In 1950, the New Testament was translated into Miao language, and the Miao version of the Bible was printed in Japan through the Bible Society for use by the Miao people. This script has been used in many villages to this day. By 1950, Shimenkan had produced the first doctor, masters, and more than 100 undergrads in the history of the Miao people, and the overall illiteracy rate and education level were much higher than those of the Han people in the same region. After 1905, Shimenkan quickly became the cultural highland of southwest China, and the place with the highest level of modern education in China. And at that time, it was already known as Cultural Holy Land and overseas Heavenly Kingdom in the eyes of Westerners. Unfortunately, the reality is not a Disney movie, and now Shimenkan seems to have changed to its original appearance. Faith led by Pollard 120 years ago is still a spark, and the scattered Christian villagers in the countryside are still living as they were 2,000 years ago, living with mountains, plateaus, ultraviolet rays, sheep flocks and flocks, beer soil erosion mountains on the way, out-of-school children selling wild mushroom on the roadside, and elderly people who still trolling in the countryside alone for their survival. On this occasion, my father and I visit the remaining Christian villagers, Shimenkan, a 43 years old who dropped out primary school in the first grade. He herds sheep for a living and is simple and shy. What impressed me the most was that he could hear that we have different accents. He asked us, "Where are you from?" My dad said that we were from Beijing, and from his reaction, he didn't seem to know where Beijing was. He asked, "Where do you herd sheep?" Her mom's name is Yang Deying, 44 years old, and she does not know Chinese. She never went to school, but she was smiling at me. She was in charge of our dinner. She was busy in the kitchen with the pigsty and the toilet, the choking smoke after the burning branches of their house, their stove, their food and cooking method that I had never experienced it before. No gas stove, no appliances, no spices. Most of the food was boiled, but she was generous and gentle, and she went out of her way to kill chicken to entertain us. There was a brother and a sister in the family. The younger brother was Shu Tao, 60 years old, who appeared to be minorish. He was silent. He sat on a sofa full of flies. He was silent about our question, except that he was usually in junior high school at a vocational school, and nothing. The sister's name is Zhu, 17 years old. She's the same age as me, but she's much shorter than me. She has not spoken. She has been burning wood for us in the fire pit in the kitchen. I was sad to look at her hands, to see her invasive and even somewhat timid gaze. The villagers here had to work and shepherd their sheep during the day, so they moved their Sunday meetings to 9 p.m. as the cross, religion, and church was restricted by the government. So the village church looked like a storehouse from the outside. The church was very simple, and most of the dilapidated and painted seats were filled with left-behind children and elderlies, who sang the familiar rhythms in the Mao language, and when they opened the Mao Bible, the Mao language appeared to my eyes, and I was touched. In 1905, this southwestern border town already had a primary and secondary school, a bilingual school, a football field, an outdoor swimming pool, a hospital, and a post office. 40 years later, in 1989, I checked the results of a local social survey. 10 people in Shimenkan area had a quote for 10 people. 88% of children were out of school, 80% were illiterate, and 98% of the family receiving relief because of poverty. Now, 30 years later, bilingual schools have long ceased to exist, and primary school and secondary schools have been built in different places, and the original school buildings or gates are locked or left to be dilapidated. The football field and outdoor swimming pool have also been swallowed up by time, thorns, and weeds. I would like to quote a passage from humanities scholar Professor Chang as the end of this film. We went to the most remote parts of China to explore the wonders of civilization. This is a typical example of faith changing society. In the century-old history of Shimenkan, there is a cult for the salvation of today's Chinese society. Of course, there is also a hidden cult for personal salvation. After learning about society old stone, I asked myself the following 3 questions. Polar, a British, gave up his privileged life to come to the most remote mountains area of China, risking his life to evangelize, educate, and provide universal medical care. Without money, power, or fame. Why? Power has been preaching Shimenkan for 17 years, and there are few believers, in just few years at Shimenkan. What is the tendency? Why? 100 years old history of Shimenkan is like a parabola. From 1904, when Polar entered the country, to 1949, when the People's Republic of China was founded, the parabola has been upward. Shimenkan has improved its civilization, education, and male people living standard, but from 1949 onwards, the parabola began to downward. Why?